As we continue the series on the weird and heretical beliefs of the Catholic Church, let's look at what the Church teaches about death. The Catechism states on page 117, citing the Book of Wisdom, that God didn't make death, and that death entered the world through the devil's envy. This seems to suggest that God did not originally intend for anything to die. In fact, this is exactly what the Catechism states later on pages 284 to 285. It states that even though man's nature is mortal, God had destined him not to die. Death was therefore contrary to the plans of God, the Creator, and entered the world as a consequence of sin. What? Death was contrary to God's plans? Then how did it happen? How can anything contrary to God's plans ever possibly happen? If God wills something to happen, and if the opposite happens instead, doesn't that mean that God was unable to stop it, and was therefore not omnipotent or omniscient? Instead, it seems that the devil threw a wrench in God's design and counteracted his will. This is pure blasphemy, but it is exactly what the Church teaches. It's one thing to say that God allowed death to enter the world, even though where death came from, if God didn't create it, is still a problem. But quite another thing to say that death entered the world in contravention to God's plan. It seems to suggest that Satan is almost as powerful as God. This is pure heresy. And it led to other abominable heresies as well. For example, some early Christians believed that mankind owed a ransom to the devil, and that Jesus was that ransom. This view was propounded by the early church father Origen of Alexandria. To make matters worse, a later church father, Gregory of Nyssa, believed that God deceived Satan and tricked him into unwittingly giving up his ransom payment. Besides the clear blasphemy of the Catholic view on the appearance of death, there is another problem with this view. It contradicts common sense and even contradicts the Bible. Consider that in the creation account of Genesis 1, God specifically said to Adam and Eve and all the other creatures that he has given them every plant for food. By being consumed as food, would those plants not die? And why would they even need food if there was no death in the world in the first place? Food is necessary for health, and without it, we would die. See the problem? The heresies of the Church are getting worse, but we're just warming up. There are more Catholic heresies to come in this series, inshallah.
وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا